Hello and welcome back to the Scottish cottage renovation channel. My name is Fran and this week I'm going to do something a little bit different. Roots and Refuge recently called for a collaboration video on different cookbooks and homestead books that you have tested or that you know the information is true. In the light of AI books being written now and a lot of false information being published or just generally untrue. This is quite an important video, I think, and thanks very much Jess for calling for the collaboration. So first up, I would like to show you one of my favourite gardening books. So this one is called The Principles of Horticulture. I've got the third edition here by C.R. Adams, and essentially this is a must-read if you're new to gardening. It covers everything from soil science to basic plant science. It's very simply written. I've actually got a horticulture degree, so this was our sort of essential read for the first year at university. So this is a really useful book if you're just starting out as a gardener. This has been going for many years, and as I said, it's a very useful book. It covers plant diseases as well as soil science, so and seeds and everything. So I highly recommend this book. I only have one canning book at the moment, and it's in German. As many of you know probably by now, I am German, and my sister got me the Weck canning book one year as a Christmas present. I'm aware that you can buy this one in English, and then it covers the UFDA canning laws as well. So, because I think it was published for the American market. This Weck canning book does all the things that a lot of canners think is not good practice. So here your water bath can low acid foods as well as meat, basically just for longer periods of time. This has been all reviewed and has been up for a long time. I don't know which edition I've got, but yeah, they have been around for a long time. So moving on to foraging books, I thought it would be very good just to cover a really good reference book here for the UK for mushroom ID. My job actually involves identifying mushrooms half of the year, so I use this book quite a bit, and I highly recommend you get a copy. This is a really good book for species identification, so it's not so much telling you which ones are edible or not, there's better books out there for that, but to actually identify a mushroom and get really up to speed for that, it does a great job. And you really start getting into it, I think, with a book like this, because it just helps you understand mushrooms a bit easier and how to identify them. So I do think this is quite a good book to start off with. So next up, I've got the River Cottage handbooks here. I don't have all of them. There are loads and loads of them. They are a really good book series to get hold of, I think, because they really teach you a lot of different things by experts. Although it is all reviewed by one author, he gets an expert in his field or her field to write the book. So I've got The Edible Seashore, Veg Patch, Hedgerow, Sea Fishing, and Preseves. So they're all written obviously in the UK, and they cover like coastal foraging in the UK and hedgerows in the UK and how to identify most of the plants. If you live in America and you want to get any of these books, I highly recommend the Preseves book. It's so good. It's got some really interesting recipes that I've never heard of before. It's got my favourite chili jam recipe. It's such a good chili jam recipe. And just generally it's a really interesting, cool book. So out of the ones I have currently, this is probably my favourite and most referenced. I do very much like the edible seashore one as well, because I really want to get into that. So I do recommend getting them. There's also, they wrote one on cheese making and curing meat as well, so I would recommend getting them. So continuing on the foraging part, my husband got me this great book on butchering, smoking, curing wild game and fish. It's a bit more tricky in the UK to go hunting, so we don't actually do the hunting part ourselves at the moment, but we regularly get a deer or pheasants or ducks from a local stalker, and that book has helped me quite a bit, like to understand the cuts a bit better. There are also quite a few good videos out there on YouTube that like describe how to break down a deer quite nicely. But I like this for like the inspiration part, because it's got some really neat recipes as well. It's got like some really unusual stuff as well. Like it tells you how to skin and how to work with a frog, but also stuff like a muscat. It's written, or crocodile, that's another good one. It's written for the American market as far as I understand, but I think it's a really good book still. I really enjoyed looking through it. I've left the cookbooks to last because I figured it's the sort of biggest genre I have currently here. So I thought I'll start with my favorite again. So I picked up this book just when I left home. I had already cooked quite a few recipes myself and wasn't quite a novice, but this book gave me really great confidence to really get into cooking, especially loads of British recipes, because I moved here when I was 19 from Germany, and there were quite a few like British style foods that I've never cooked before. And this book here, Grandma's Best Recipes, a new collection from Grandma's Kitchen, is such a good book for that. So it teaches you old classic British recipes. It's written in the UK, so it gives you a really good idea. It's got stuff like vegetable cobbler, bangers and mash, jam, how to make a good steak sandwich. It's got ham and potato pie, which is one of our favourites. Germans are not really big on pies, so it took me a while to learn how to make like a good pie and that sort of thing. But if you're just starting out with cooking, I think this is an excellent book to really get into. It's really pretty, it's really well written. They usually have a little sticker, I don't know whether you can see this, they usually have a little sticker in there telling you Grandma's tip on how to do a better job with a certain dish, how to make a good gravy, how to make a mint sauce. There's literally everything in here you could possibly need as like starting off in cooking and just doing sort of traditional style meals rather than a specific cuisine, if that makes sense. So if you're into Italian cooking, this is quite a nice little neat book. This is the second book from the cook series, so both of these I've picked up from charity shops. This is a really good sort of standard book on very simple traditional Italian cooking, as I understand. It's really neat because it just tells you how to make simple meals, and I think that's what Italian cooking is all about. It tells you how to make pasta as well. Really good base pizza recipe. There's literally really good inspiration in here. I do have another cookbook. I'll put the picture in on the screen. It's called Dear Francesca. If you're looking to have a really good story with your cookbook, I highly recommend you get Dear Francesca. It talks about Italian immigrants who moved to Edinburgh and set up I believe a shop and a restaurant, and it's basically, I think the grandma wrote her granddaughter this book, pretty much. And she talks constantly about here's how we do in Italy. And like one of the things I remember that her grandma advised her is like, you should never have salt on the table because your meal should always be well salted. Pepper, however, is something that everybody should do to taste, so you should always have a pepper grinder on your table. And I don't know whether you've noticed this, but certainly in the UK, like Italian restaurants always offer pepper, but they never offer salt on the table. Moving on to a few more sort of traditional farmhouse books. Again, most of these books I have picked up in charity shops. I really enjoy second-hand shopping for good recipe books, because sometimes you find real treasures that you wouldn't really necessarily find somewhere else. So this one here I picked up in a charity shop in Wales, I think 3 years ago. It talks about some very simple recipes. It might be from the 90s, 80s, 90s. And again, it sort of discusses loads of topics that you would like to cover in a cookbook. So you have some very simple, like how to make a simple roast, how to make a good cobbler, but also some more seasonal stuff that you might get in from the garden. So I do think this is a great book. Again, if you've got a farm or if you're dreaming about it, I think some of these recipes will really help you if you turn your waiting room into a classroom. And one of the ones that I only got recently, but I really, really like, it's called The Country Kitchen by Jocasta Innes, sorry. And this book is really nice. It essentially talks about everything you need to know in like a homesteading scenario. So it talks about how to make bread, how to make different types of bread, how to make bread without yeast, how to make bread without sourdough, how to cure meat, how to make simple cheeses, how to brew cider, how to brew beer, how to make butter. It's literally got all the sort of things you could possibly imagine, and it is quite nicely illustrated for an old book as well. There are some pictures in here. You can see this is the butter making page. So there's quite a bit. I think that's really cool in this book. I think my top tip really to look for a good cookbook or homesteading related, I would always go to a second-hand or charity shop, because quite often you can find some really cool treasures in there. Just moving on from the cookbook side, if you ever find yourself in a Le Creuset shop, they quite often have these handy little, I don't want to call them a magazine, but like a mini catalogue of a seasonal recipe. So I have got a few of these, and they will talk about a very seasonal recipe. So this one was picked up in the summer. So it talks about stuffed peppers and other things. So sometimes you can find a really good treasure in these that is really interesting as well. So I do really enjoy them. Even if you don't make one of these, I think they're very inspirational. So if you look at the pictures, they're really pretty. If anything, it might inspire you to buy an item of Le Creuset, but certainly, like, some of the recipes are just really colourful and lovely. So I do actually have a few of those, and I keep them in my kitchen journal. So this leads me on to another thing that I really recommend you get is make yourself a little kitchen journal, because I basically take this to family events or when I meet people and they have a great recipe, I write it down. So because of that, I have a collection of people's recipes, and I usually put the date on the top corner, where I found it, like who gave it to me, but sometimes it can be as simple as it was the internet. But yeah, so there's one recipe for a Indian curry called butter chicken. It entered this book 18th of July 2015, and it's from my mother-in-law Susie. So I really recommend that you get something like this. This is actually quite funny. I also picked this up at a charity shop. It was empty. It was also an unwanted gift, and I was so thrilled. Well, I'm not a pink person. I do really like this, and it keeps all the recipes together. And I do have some more of these recipe cards at the back here that I can show you. So there's sometimes Akushi also does these recipe cards. So there's one on blueberry and honey drop scones. So, well, these are all the cookbooks that I currently have here. Because you probably know, we're currently renovating our own house, so we do have quite a few things in storage with my mother-in-law. So unfortunately I can't show you all of the books. One book genre that I don't have any copies of here that I really think would be great to look at though is herbal medicine books. I will put the 2 books on the screen that I really like in that genre. I think they're wonderful books. One of them basically is very much like the Principles in Horticulture book. It teaches you all the basics around herbal medicine, how to make basic tinctures, how to make teas, how to get the most out of a medicinal herbal plant. It's a great read, and it reads really well. It's more like an encyclopedia kind of style. You can see how much effort they've put into this book. They give you a whole lot of information on all the plants, and you can also search collective pages for ailments. Now the other book is another treasure that my mother-in-law bought me one year for Christmas, and it's just so good. It compares one different book from a few years back. So I think it was like Middle Ages. I want to say something like 1500s. A medical journal and how to deal with certain ailments. And then on the other side, modern medical experts comment on the old page and what of it has any truth in it, and how you should use that plant or treat that ailment today. So I find that book very interesting. It's a really cool read. Again, it's just really fascinating, and I would highly recommend that you get a copy. Editing Fran here. I just forgot to mention 2 different YouTube channels and blogs that are really worth a look at. One of them is Farmhouse on Boone. I think Lisa does a great job with different sourdough recipes, and she comes up with lovely farmhouse recipes all the time. I really enjoy following her blog and also following her podcast. I'll link it down below. And also Tanya from Lovely Greens. She's got a great resource for learning how to make soap. So I've never made soap before I found her channel, and now I'm quite confident soap maker, and I do several different cold processed soaps, and she has a very nice way of explaining everything, and her blog posts are very thorough as well. So I'll link both below. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I know it's a bit different. If you want to see more of this sort of stuff, do let me know. I love talking about all of those topics a lot, so you can probably tell. So I'm happy to share more information if you'd like to. If you enjoyed this week's video, do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.